Okay, so having done that, and there's a package, if you don't have these little eraser tips, there's like a package you can steal up by the one pear just kind of resting there. But I'm going to use a combination of that and a kneaded eraser. And I'm going to use the kneaded eraser kind of the same way I did, but instead of tapping, I'm going to wipe with it. And you can see it comes up pretty bright. And this is where you'll start seeing, you know, the shape of the pear kind of come in a little bit. Reflected light, just lighten that just a touch. So now it becomes kind of a lot of back and forth. You go in, you can also use this almost like a paintbrush. Like it's not just about using the sharp edge where I go in and pull up, you know, little things with it. I can also, you gotta clean it. If you haven't gathered by now, this is not a class where you want to wear clothes you care about. It's like, you know, you want to be able to just kind of wipe your hands and wipe whatever. So if you have to like leave here and go to work or something, it might be not be a bad idea to throw like an old shirt or something in. So I can also use it, instead of using just the tip to pull up lines, I can use it almost like a negative paintbrush, where I put the whole flat of it down and kind of pull up areas. And it gives me a little bit more control than the kneaded eraser, right? This edge comes down a little bit. And then I can still go back, like this has gotten a little bit sharp, and kind of soften that, push it back a little bit, make sure my reflected light's not getting too bright. The other thing I'm going to use this edge for, with the lights and darks, is that you'll notice on these that the surfaces are kind of dimpled, right? They're not like perfectly smooth. So I don't want this edge between the light and dark to be too even and too rounded like it was with the egg. So where I'm going to get that roughness in is going in and making sure that edge kind of comes and goes. So you can see kind of this lumpiness to it. Even a little bit down here on this part of it. And then again, going back, since that's so harsh, softening it a little bit. When I'm softening it, I'm not rubbing this way, I'm rubbing along that, and I'm rubbing very lightly. And then I'm going to switch to a harder pencil and start, I got an HB somewhere. No, I don't. 2H. And start sharpening up the edge. Because these will they have a tendency to look out of focus. And that's the downside of this process, is that if you don't go back and spend some time actually rendering edges and sharpening up shadows and that kind of thing, they'll always look kind of out of focus. So there's still some rendering done, it just happens at the end. So you can make sure that things are showing up clearly. This needs to disappear a little bit. And then for the cast shadow, I can just take, and even the outside edge, I can just take the kneaded eraser, kind of wipe around. And this loads the kneaded eraser up in a hurry. go back with my hard pencil. I'm not going to sharpen up the cast shadow at all. I just want to sharpen up the edge of the pear. So at this point it becomes a lot of back and forth. This is, if you have one of the tortillas, like one of the little, I like, some of them are hollow, where they're like a hollow cone. And I think that you're supposed to put those on like the tip of a pencil or something to use them. But I've never liked them as much because they're a little bit soft. These come to a point, like I can actually now go in and use this on some of the areas to refine it and kind of draw with it. It actually, I'll do this out in the light area so you can see it, but you can actually make real soft little marks with it, right? And kind of pull things around. But once you start using this, those areas where I have gone in and used it, if I wanted to lighten those or erase those, it would be really difficult at this point because I've rubbed it in enough that it's kind of burnished. It's actually kind of burnishing the graphite a little bit, so it kind of smears it right into the paper. And it's really tough to change it. Reflected light coming up on the end. That's a little too bright, so I just go back. So it's a lot of back and forth. Raise it up, then push it back, kind of thing. Okay, last thing, at the very end, before you do anything else, or before you kind of like pull your tape up, and you don't have to tape it. Like if you don't have tape, just do kind of a cloud kind of thing in your paper. But you'll notice there's a highlight on this section of the pear, right? Like in the round part, it's just that one little white spot. Even though I've erased it up pretty hard, it's still got a little tone to it. So at the very end, I'll take the chalk and kind of build it up just to pull, and it's got a shape to it. It's not a perfect circle. It's kind of coming, so building up the chalk in that little light highlight, and then just letting it go. And that will help to round it, because that's going to say, that will point out that that one part of the pear is closer to the light than that whole other part of the round surface. Okay, but try to, again, the first part will go really quickly, or relatively quickly, and then it'll slow down. Are you guys familiar with the term atmospheric perspective, by any chance? Atmospheric perspective, for those who are not familiar with it, is a way to give the illusion of space without, you know, like using like 1-point perspective or something of that nature. Atmospheric perspective is basically this. Like this pear has really sharp darks and lights on it, right? It's not as detailed as it could get, but it's fairly detailed. Recessed shadow shows up the bottom of it, all that. This one, if I would take it and then just do this with it, I put that one further away, right? Just the fact that the lights are not as bright, the darks are kind of fuzzy, the edge is softer, and I would do the same with kind of the area in between them a little bit. But it's idea that as you look at things far away, there's so much stuff in the air that, you know, things get hazy and less intense the further away you get. It's like looking through fog. So you can do that even on something like this where everything is fairly clear. If I want to exaggerate that depth, I can take the very back one and it can get progressively fuzzier. You know, you still see the basic lights and darks that give you the mask. It's just not as clear or crisp as the one that's closer to you. it's similar to, like in photography, they do the same kind of thing with depth of field, right? You've seen like somebody takes a picture of a whole bush full of flowers, and they'll set their depth of field or their focus so small that one flower will be in focus and everything else gets blurry, right? So it's not drawing your attention to it. Any questions on that? Any of this? So you want to kind of do this flat, so it's not a bad idea when you're putting down your ground, rather than to do it at the drawing angle, either lay it flat on where you're sitting or turn your table up so everything doesn't slide off into your lap. Okay, so first thing, put your tone down, and then, with soft pencil, do them about life size, right? So about the size of the actual pear. And again, block them all, just like with the eggs. Get them all blocked in, but focus on the one that's pointing out at you. Do those shadows first, as carefully as you can, and then given time, we'll go into the other ones and finish those.